My name is Henry Collins. I'm 75 years old. I've started counting my life in winters, not birthdays, not years, winters, because each one feels. The mornings are slower now. At the end of this video, I'm sharing something I wish someone had told me years ago. It cost me time, pain, and experience to learn. Don't skip. This last message matters. My knees ache before I even stand. I sit on the edge of the bed for a while, letting the room come into focus. There's no rush anymore, no clock to punch, no supervisor waiting, just the sound of the house settling around me. I used to think that kind of quiet would feel like peace. It doesn't. Not always. Most of my life, I believed a job was the spine of a man. If you had steady work, you were solid, dependable, worth something. That's what my father taught me without ever saying the words. He worked 38 years at the same factory, never complained, never missed a shift unless he was too sick to stand. When he retired, they gave him a plaque and a handshake. He hung that plaque in the garage. I remember thinking that was the goal. I was 22 when I got hired at the manufacturing plant in town. It was union work, good pay, benefits, overtime if you wanted it, and I always wanted it. I had just married Linda. She was 20, full of plans and energy. We rented a small apartment with thin walls and loud neighbors. I told her, "Don't worry, I've got us." And I believed that meant working as much as I could. In those early years, it felt noble. I'd leave before sunrise, come home after dark, smelling like oil and metal. She'd have dinner on the table. I'd eat fast, tired, already thinking about the next shift. Sometimes she'd start telling me about her day and I'd nod, but my mind was still on the line, on production numbers, on the foreman's face when something went wrong. I told myself this was what a responsible man did. Before we move ahead, I want to tell you something important. Subscribe to the channel. The team behind this channel puts real effort, sharing real stories from real people to help improve your life. When our first son was born, I picked up extra hours, hospital bills, diapers, formula. I didn't want her to worry about money, so I made sure she didn't have to. I missed his first steps because I was covering for a guy who called in sick. Linda told me about it later, smiling, trying to make it sound small. "He just took a few wobbly steps," she said. "You'll see plenty more." I believed her. I thought there would be plenty more. There usually is when you're young. Years stacked up like that. Work, overtime, promotions. I moved up to shift supervisor in my mid-30s. It came with more pay and more pressure. I wore that pressure like a badge. I'd stay late to finish reports. I'd come in on weekends if something broke down. My phone was always on, even at dinner. I remember my daughter's 10th birthday. We had people over, cake on the table, candles lit. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A machine had gone down. Production was behind. I stepped outside to take the call. I stayed outside almost 40 minutes, pacing the driveway, giving instructions. When I came back in, the candles were blown out. The cake was cut. She didn't say anything. She just hugged me. At the time, I thought, this is temporary. I'm building something for them. Security, stability. I thought sacrifice meant love, but sacrifice has a direction. It always takes something from somewhere. By my 40s, the house was bigger. 2 cars in the driveway. College funds started. Linda went back to part-time work once the kids were older. She seemed quieter. I noticed it sometimes. She'd sit at the table after dinner staring out the window. I'd ask what she was thinking about. She'd say nothing much. I didn't press. I was tired. The job became my measure. Good year? I was a good man. Bad quarter? I felt like a failure. My moods rose and fell with production targets. I told myself that was just responsibility. That's what being a provider meant. I didn't see how narrow my world was becoming. When layoffs came in my early 50s, I wasn't worried. I had seniority. I had a title. I'd given them decades. Loyalty meant something, I thought. It didn't. They called me into an office one Tuesday morning. Human resources. A folder on the desk. Words like restructuring and efficiency. They thanked me for my service. 31 years. Just like that, it was over. I remember walking to my car in the middle of the day, sun high in the sky, parking lot full of vehicles that still had somewhere to be. I sat behind the wheel and felt hollow, not angry, not yet, just empty. When I told Linda, she put her hand over mine. We'll be okay, she said, and we were. I found another job after a few months. Smaller company, less pay, no union. I worked just as hard, maybe harder. I had something to prove now, that I was still valuable, still necessary. That's the word I kept chasing, necessary. The kids grew up and left college, jobs in other states, visits at holidays, phone calls that got shorter over time. They had their own lives. I told myself that meant we'd done our job right. Linda and I sat across from each other more often then, just the two of us at dinner. I started noticing how much I didn't know about her anymore. What she liked, what she feared, what she dreamed about. We had shared a house, a bed, children, but somewhere along the way, I had made my job the center of gravity, and everything else orbited around it, including her. She got sick when I was 63. Nothing dramatic at first, just tiredness, tests, appointments, words from doctors that sounded clinical and distant. I was still working full-time then. I tried to juggle both. Hospital in the morning, office by noon, laptop open in waiting rooms. One afternoon, she looked at me from the hospital bed and said, very softly, "You don't have to answer that." My phone had been buzzing again. I turned it face down on the chair. For once. But I was late. Not to the hospital. Late in understanding. When you've spent 40 years choosing work first, it's not easy to suddenly choose something else. Even when the something else is the person who's been beside you the whole time. She passed away a year later. I had retired by then. I thought retirement would mean more time together. Trips we postponed, dinners out, long conversations without the clock ticking. Instead, I sat beside her bed and watched the machines breathe for her. After the funeral, people brought casseroles. They shook my hand and said, "You were a good husband, a good provider." I nodded. I had been a good provider. But I kept thinking about that birthday call, about the first steps I missed, about the evenings when she sat alone while I stared at a spreadsheet. I depended on my job to give me identity, to give me worth. I poured myself into it because it always had a clear answer. Work hard, get paid, hit the target, get the bonus, fix the problem, earn the praise. People aren't like that. They don't measure love in numbers. They measure it in presence.
A job pays the bills, but a business buys you freedom. I spent most of my life building someone else's dream, thinking I was needed. Truth is, Pam, in a job, you're always replaceable. If you're gonna grind for something that's yours. Build income that doesn't own your time. Build something that lets you be present at your own table. Money without freedom is just another trap. And success without time isn't success at all. One day, you won't care about promotions. You'll care about the moments you actually showed up for. Don't just work hard. Work free.